Cool. So, Arsalan, welcome to the podcast. So happy to have you here.
Toby. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this. So thank you for having me.
You know what? Clubhouse has been so cool because you just meet people you otherwise probably never would. And I've heard you on there spitting absolute knowledge on tech consulting and also just, advice, especially for international students. So I was desperate to have you on here to kind of give those gems to my audience. So thanks so much for coming.
No, for me as well, likewise. Very few Clubhouse rooms, and people who are not aware, it's an app that people can come over and listen to people with the audio only podcast that you can interrupt kind of vibe. And the rooms that you hosted and the topics that you were doing was so engaging. It was really hard for me to not pay attention. And whenever there were some questions on international students or graduate schemes in the UK, I had to jump in because I was like, Toby sounds like a guy that I would love to, get to know more. And I'm glad we're doing this through that.
Nice. I really appreciate that. So let's dive straight in then. Like, give us a quick background as to how you got here, and yeah, you've got an interesting story. So do give us a quick background on that.
Of course. So Pakistani, born and bred, So I did my GCSEs in sixth form from Karachi in Pakistan, and I knew that I wanted to do engineering at that point. My father being in oil tankers, I thought chemical engineering or petroleum engineering is a vibe that I do feel more passionate about, and applied for engineering universities and came to the UK in 2013. Wow, seems like a while,
Yeah, old man.
Yeah, I know, right here now. But so it was in 2013 I went to University of Leeds up the Yorkshire, and during that time I spent 5 years in uni where I did 4 years of chemical engineering with an MEng, and I did a year in industry as a petrochemical engineer, but this was in Teesside in Middlesbrough. And once I did that 5 years experience of university and working, I realized actually my interests are now getting a bit more aligned differently. Climate change is real. David Attenborough would not be proud of me if I were to go into something which is burning fossil fuels. So I'll start looking around those things and sustainable energy, climate, renewable energy, but also technology. And when I started getting exposed to technology, I realized that a couple of things that really what I'm passionate about is helping people and about technology. And I thought I need to explore this avenue. So speaking to people like you, people who are involved in these kind of discussions and my friends circles, I got to know about tech consulting. So long story short, I started applying for tech consulting graduate opportunities, and one of the big fours in London took the punt on me, and in 2018 started as a tech consultant in a graduate scheme, and here we are.
Nice.
3 years now.
I love that David Attenborough got to you, and now you're fighting the good fight. So I've actually just signed up for a pledge to reduce food waste, which I'm finding so easy because it turns out I don't actually waste any food, So but I implore everyone to do the same. So let's dive into that then. So tech consulting, What is it, Arsalan? Because sometimes I'm not gonna lie, I question whether I know what it really means, and I think a lot of the audience probably familiar with strategic consulting, and when they think consultancy, they think strategy, they think management maybe. But tell me a bit about tech consulting.
Hey, if I would keep it short, I think we're all trying to still figure it out, right? It is so broad. Consultants are people who try to solve problems. Long story short, that's the end game. If I come to you and I say, hey, Toby, what's your problem? And Toby, you tell me, I want to grow this podcast. I want to help more people. I will help figure out what your root analysis are, what your issue is, come up with that problem, define it, and then try to provide a solution that I'm an expert of. And if not, I will bring a team around me that can help you. Where tech consulting fits in that paradigm is we use technology resources to solve your problems. We study your company, we study your problems, and we analyze it in a way through the lens of a technology expert or technology resources to say, hey, have you analyzed your data this way? Or, hey, have you thought about moving your company towards cloud, because that will allow you to scale your project even more? Have you thought about going online with your sales and your e-commerce? Have you thought about building an app for this product of yours? So essentially using the tools that we already have within this space of technology and giving solutions oriented to that is tech consulting. I hope that was somewhat did justice to that. And if anybody's listening who's a tech consultant and does not fit, please do correct me offline.
No, I got it. So if someone wants to get into that space, they could apply to one of the big four, let's say, and work in the tech team. So using kind of technology to solve business problems. And the clients can be from any industry, right? Not
absolutely. So,
yeah.
And this is why I think consultancies are such great places to start if you're unsure about the industry you're passionate about, because it exposes you to financial services like banks and insurance companies. It exposes you to Tesco's and Sainsbury's and bigger corporate firms. It exposes you to NGOs and organizations of that sort. So the world's your oyster in terms of the clients that you'll be meeting and the people you'll be talking to and the problems you'll be solving. And then eventually during that process, you can find your niche, you can find your interest. Currently I'm in financial services, solving a problem for the bank in terms of anti-money laundering and helping them identify customers that might not be who they say they are. So that excites me, saying that, hey, solutions that I'm working on is going to have an instant impact on not just the bank, but also the people around, So definitely would recommend a episode on Netflix. It's called Cartel Bank from Dirty Money, this series. And that is something that I've been working on as part of my project, working with banks to vet their customers. So I think the canvas is broad, and as long as you start painting, you will start to figure out which colors that you vibe with more, I think.
I love that. Yeah, I'll check that out then on Dirty Money. That sounds really good. Interesting. Yeah, I've always thought getting into consulting early in your career could really kind of set it alight, really. If you're not quite sure what you want to do, it can be a great route to learn how to really operate at a high level, because you're kind of advising businesses, working with some of the best business minds. So it's a great way to start. And I know tons of companies that love hiring from the big four and other consultancies. So let's now jump into the application process then. So this is often what we're talking about in Clubhouse, and you're the expert on kind of this process, because I've never done it before. So I imagine it's often, CV, written application. We've got an online test we need to do, and then the dreaded case study as well. And we've got, interviews and assessment centers wrapped up in there. So if I'm right, CV, that's typical, and a written application as well, or one or the other? Or does it just depend on the company?
So it depends on company to company. Big fours are moving away from CVs very much. Online application process would be preferred. Some companies, like the strategy companies, are still open to sending your CVs. Cover letters are definitely not a priority for many of the companies. So I wouldn't spend too much time on it unless somebody's asked for it. Write a cover letter, or like, for example, McKinsey. I was in one of their networking events, and they said, send a cover letter if you're applying for a location that you're not currently residing in, because that might help them understand, why is it that somebody in London is trying to apply for a position in Sydney. So those kind of instances, case by case basis, but predominantly CV or online application is the route. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll let you pick either one of those or both. Any advice on how to write a really good CV for consultancy, or any advice on that kind of initial application?
Sure. So I'll take the CV first, and then we'll go to the online application. CV, I'm also learning. We're all learning, right? I'm a photographer. When I take a photo and edit it, I show it to somebody. They're like, oh, you could do the contrast a bit more. I'm like, okay, I can take it back. I show it to somebody else. They're like, oh, you can work on the shadows or lighting or saturation. There's never going to be a perfect CV. You can always think of improving it. What you can do is limit your chances of getting rejected. That's a way I would put it. And when I say that is, speaking of recruiters, so I'm not a recruiter, so please don't hold me to it. I take everything with a pinch of salt. But having spoken to a lot of recruiters, having heard people from Clubhouse, and having spoken to career advisors in university, things that I learned was be concise, right? Be concise, be able to sell your achievements. For consultancies and where I have applied a lot of the times banks, they prefer one-page CV. Let's keep it simple. One page, education, and then go on to your experiences and your skills. Structure is important. Look into the company, research on it. Every company has a specific way of structure of CV. So yes, the content should also be tailored as per the company you're applying to, in terms of if you're applying for a business analyst, use those words. If you're applying for a data analyst, use those words and skills. However, also the structure. So for example, I know McKinsey prefers education on the top, whereas others don't. So please do your research in those kind of elements as well.
And just on that, Arsalan, what's some of the good ways to find that out then? So if I want to get a job at PwC or a company like that, how do I find out the CV style that they prefer? Is that not hard to discover?
Oh, good question. I think speaking to people helps a lot. Going to these open days helps a lot because you build your network so people can then share it. Like, for example, where I work or the companies I've applied to, if people reach out to me, I'll be like, hey, you can try this for this company, this for that company. Also online resources. You put on Google, you start search something, it will start coming up, right? There's Heinrich, one of the absolute gem of YouTubers. If you just search Heinrich, he will come up. He's German. He's worked in McKinsey. He shares the structure for McKinsey. So if you start searching about that company, you'll start finding people who are there to help as well. So that's something that I applied when I was applying in that stage. And also career centers. So university, if you're still in university, career centers in university they know what these companies are looking for because they talk to recruiters so oftenly and go to those workshops. So that helps. Something also helps is that CV drop-in sessions by the companies. So in university, Shell used to drop in, BP used to come, and P&G used to come. So I used to just go in their CV drop-in sessions and say, hey, what would you suggest? So I would definitely recommend those parts as well. So yeah, you know the structure now. You're happy with how it's laid out. Then it's about numbers. Make sure you have numbers on your CV. Always end your commitment or your description of something that you did with an impact that you had. 50% improvement, double the membership, etc. Have that. Have something to say that it wasn't just a team effort, it was you who made the impact. And what was the impact? This was the impact, right? I think culturally, we are told to talk about we or take everybody together as a team. But during applications, CV, interview, recruiters are interested about you. What makes you different? What impact can you have? Can you help the company? How so? So if you talk in numbers, it sets a good picture for them.
Brilliant.
So I think those are the things, and skills of obviously make sure you have those skills that the company is looking for. Search online in terms of values they look for and try to feed that in through the examples that you give. Positions of responsibility. So consultancies are very much focused on leadership opportunities and can you be the next leader? So if you can exhibit that in your CV that, hey, I did this and I did that and I was a leader in this, that brings you in a good position in terms of your CV as well. And finally, don't try to cramp everything up, Don't try to bring the font size too low or something to just fit everything. Just make sure that it is representing, it's got that enough white space, it doesn't get daunting, and it's easy to follow. You don't have to try anything to dazzle the audience, just keep it simple. I think that'll be the tips I give on CV writing. I might have missed a lot, so, but these are the things that
come. I think you hit on some great ones. I think, University Career Centre, underrated, definitely. I think, quantify, get some numbers in there. I think you hit on some great points. Let's go on to the next piece then. So we're online.
application.
Talk to me about the the online application process, and also the tests as well. I'm intrigued by these tests. I used to hate doing these tests so much, and
Same.
I've got an economics degree. I'm not the best with these numerical ones.
Yeah.
Psychometrics can kind of do it. I thought they were so difficult, and I'm so glad now that once I got to the point where I don't have to do this anymore, I'm like, great, that's in the past now. So yeah, online applications, if you want to touch on that, but definitely these tests. Tell me how I've got to, get past these tests.
Absolutely. Online application, very simple. It's just trying to get through the next stage. So what I would suggest is if you're in Russell Group University or you've recently gone through Russell Group University with a 2-1 or a first class, this is all UK specific, job's a good one. You will get through the next stage. And yes, there's a A-level score priority as well with the UCAS points. And at that time, our time, the requirement was 3-4 years ago, the old UCAS system of 320 points or something of that sort.
Mm-hmm.
But now I think there's a new UCAS system. So just check that, make sure you're hitting those targets. But if you're not as well, it's not over. If you're a first year and you've got you're not in a Russell Group University, try to get a first class or a 2-1, and you can pivot to a Russell Group University for second year. A lot of my friends have done that, and that just puts you in a good position when you're applying for those kind of jobs later on. So that's one of the key things I will definitely say. If you can switch after first year to a Russell Group, do that, because it gets you through the online application stage, right? And other thing you can do is sell yourself. So if it asks for your position of responsibilities or co-curriculars or awards, put them in, put the time in to write that down and why that award was so special. So as long as you can sell yourself well, you will definitely get to the psychometrics, which is a great segue to the question. I think I still have PTSD when I think about it. Honestly, they were not easy. And I can empathize with anybody who's going through that stage, because I can empathize with recruiters as well. They can't look into 10,000, 20,000 CVs that they get. So they have to figure out a way to filter it out. And it's just a funnel process. They have to find some way of limiting those and doing justice to those applications later on. The way I went about it was I worked as a team. I'm a strong advocate of having some of the closest people around you to help you through that process, right? And by doing so, you practice and you bounce off with each other. You say, hey, I've got a psychometric test coming up. Do you have any resources that helped? Or you did that. How was it? Was it tough? What can I do? What skills or what type of questions are they coming, right? So it's about playing it smart, right? Once somebody has done it, for example, I've done a psychometric test for a Big Four now. My friend's got one week later. He will come to me or she will come to me and say, how was it? Was it like this psychometric test we did for this other company, or was it different? And then these psychometric tests are usually from a third party. So you can go to that third party and practice those even more, right? So practice. No short answer. Like I would say I love maths. I think that I've done really well in maths during university and school. But these psychometric maths with the time pressure is something else. Huh. It's like I've forgotten basic algebra sometimes, because of that anxiety and pressure that I really want this job. So I would say the more you practice, the more you will start getting comfortable looking at these questions. And that's half of the job done. So you won't get phased when you see that question, and it'll just be about, okay, I've seen this before. And timing. Sometimes these psychometric tests say that we prefer you to do 60 minutes, but you can take as long. Take as long. Don't have to fit the time bracket if they're not asking you to. Make sure you get the answers right. Don't try to rush it. So that's something else in that space.
And so in terms of, and just to go back to the practicing on the platform. So for example, I can find that, I don't know, any tech consulting firm, they use, SHL, which is one of the platforms, right? And then you can Google around and you can find practice SHL tests. I used to use Graduate Monkey, I think it's called, and that's all kind of SHL stuff. So you can find out, okay, McKinsey, they use this platform, PwC use this platform, right? So you can literally practice what's probably going to be the actual test.
Exactly, like McKinsey, great example. They don't do that. they're problem solving tests. So they've got their own specific tests, and which are case study focused, right? And for me, that was a bit of a shock because I've coming from an engineering background, never seen those kind of problem solving tests before. And at that point, I didn't have my network in the consultancy firm. So for me to practice was a bit more difficult. So I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. The way I did was I started searching online, McKinsey tests. McKinsey offers you 3 of them, but there's other practice tests available which are similar of that sort, so I would definitely suggest that do your homework on the type of test that company does and practice accordingly.
Got it. And is that the same for the case study? Because I imagine in the consulting application process, we might have to do a couple of case studies right throughout. We might have to do it in the application process, and we might have to do it as part of the assessment center. So is it the same there? We just try to find resources to practice. I don't know if you know any resources that you've used in the past for case studies, but is it the same sort of advice?
It is the same source. I think there's no specific resource that I can say now. For me, it was just about searching that company, writing that name down on Google, going on YouTube, and people actually walk through case studies with you. What also helped me was open days. So McKinsey, all these strategy companies, Big Fours, and other companies as well, they have their open days. You can apply for it. And when you go, they actually go through the entire case study with you. And we can touch that later, but it's all about a structured approach, right? It's all about funneling it down from what the bigger problem is and then taking it down in a way that you can nail down possible avenues. And as long as you can show that and exhibit that in your answers, I think job's a good one. So definitely would suggest open days or online resources to practice those case studies.
Love that. So we've done our CV, we've done our application, and now we've got through to the assessment center, right? So we've been. You've got. Oh no, we haven't.
Yes. One thing I one thing I do not miss is the situational judgment personality online tests, right? Those were the ones that were really hard because there's no right answer for it. But a lot of the times good candidates do read too much into it and, stumble. I have been part of that. There's so many companies that I wanted to apply to, but didn't get through that stage. So some of the tips that worked for me and one of my friends was searching on the competencies and the values of that company and its competitors. So for example, if I'm applying for KPMG, I will also search for PwC, Deloitte, etc. I'll get to know, okay, are there any synergies? So if KPMG's value is together, is there a value that matches that to PwC or Deloitte, EY? Because 9 out of 10 times there will be, and you can find some more information that you can use in your application. And another layer of looking into that value, right? So that could be, teamwork, but also project delivery. They both work in the together collaboration space. So that when you get to the online test of the situational judgment, if a question is about collaboration or working alone, you will know, KPMG is definitely about collaboration, right? However, and you will steer the entire barometer towards that, or you will answer saying, I want to solve this problem via team. However, there's a catch to it that sometimes the questions are not that straightforward. They're trying to catch you out, where they're trying to say, would you rather work alone or would you rather work in a team? And then you know that that company has leadership as a value as well as working together. So then I would choose the middle route because I know that neither extreme is good in this situation because you need to have both. So just got to play around those kind of scales and then hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll go through. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's great advice. So you've really got to dive into the values, the competencies they want to see, and then I guess, write those down in kind of the order that they have them and really memorize those and research those. Then you go into your application process, situational test, and you can see, there's this question here. KPMG probably looking more collaboration, teamwork. So I'm going to answer on that side. That's good. That's probably why I was failing them. I wasn't doing that sort of stuff. So that's really great advice. So let's go to assessment center then. Yeah. So we're at the assessment center. What do you think these types of firms are looking for? So I'm going for a role at the Big Four. I want a tech job, within the tech consulting space. What are they looking for in the group exercise and the presentation and the case study? Take it wherever you want to go.
No, great. So I'm only coming from an experience of a few assessment centers I've been in. So I'm sure people have different experiences. So just take everything with a pinch of salt. This is all personal to me. All views are of my own. They do not represent of my company. So just want to put that as a caveat. This is all from my own learning. I believe when I went into these assessment centers, and assessment centers company can vary. Some could have case studies, some could have group exercises. They could ask you to do the online tests again, which now people are doing because of the virtual world. They're asking people to do the online test again to eliminate that fear of collusion. And then there's the presentations, interviews, etc. So there's no certain structure. The structure I had was I had a group activity, I had a report writing case study exercise, and then I had an interview. Within the interview, I also had to present a pitch to the client. So it was that kind of layered. But the other assessment centers I've been, they've also tried to get me to do these case study tests, written tests, and then solve a problem in front of the partner as a group, and if you do that well, then you get to the next stage of the interview. And I didn't get through the next stage of the interview and one of those. And the feedback that I got, so again, sorry, jumping a bit hoop, but the feedback I got at that point was you passed your case studies in written, but you didn't use more quantitative examples to solve that group study exercise, right? So it's about knowing the company, researching on them and saying, hey, this is very quantitative company that I'm going for. They're going to be dealing with numbers. I have to exhibit that trait in any of those group exercises, right? So just a bit of a tip on that. Do your research on the company and the language they speak. And sometimes it's not available online. So networking helps. If you build your network through the pipeline, which we can touch in a bit, on all those years that you've been in uni, somebody from that company will be able to help you in terms of giving you that extra perspective. But yeah, so what they're looking for is eventually passion about the business that you're applying for, making sure that your why is solid in the interviews, like why you're applying for this tech consulting, why this firm, why now, obviously. Mm-hmm. So all those kind of things. And in the group exercises, looking for somebody who's just easy to work with, a collaborator, a people's person, letting people speak, not too fussed about their own views, that they are just driving the conversation rather than bringing everybody together, right? So I think that's a key skill that teams are looking for, because we need to bring in diversity into this. And I don't want to go into that conversation, but very passionate about it. That need a separate podcast. But we need people from different backgrounds, giving different ideas. And if you're hospitable to that, you're open to that, I think that will show genuine collaboration skill in you, which will take you further. And finally, the online test. The online test or report case studies to be done during the assessment center. If you've come through this stage, you're probably all right with these online tests. So make sure you do not rush it, take your time, and just believe and back yourself with these report writing and case studies. If you've done enough homework, enough practice to get to this stage, you'll be fine in that. So I think my focus when I was in that position, I was hoping that I just do well in my interview in assessment center. Others too, I knew that as long as I stay true to who I am and the skills that I have and back myself, I think those should be fine. Interview can go anywhere. So I was just focusing on that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great advice, man. I'm so glad you joined, because honestly, all this kind of stuff is new to me. And I know consulting is hugely popular, and obviously tech now feels like everyone wants to work in tech. So this is really good so far. Before we kind of move on and we can talk about international students and how, as an international student in the UK, you can get a full-time job in the UK. Any more advice you want to leave before we move on anything on interviews? Are you happy to? Yeah.
Of course. I mean, interviews, that's a whole different ballgame. But I would like to shout out to all the people from careers fairs that I've been to, career centers in university, my friends, because I believe in team and the people around you help you build those skills. So they help me get out of my shell and out of my comfort zone in terms of addressing these interviews, not getting up in my head, right? And rejection after rejection can start having a toll that maybe you're not good enough, but having that support system made sure that, no, I am good enough, and eventually that will come through. Interviews, I think it's about, for me, practice being concise, practice layering your answers in a way the companies want to hear it. So it could start off with, tell me about yourself, which should be also concise and should relate to who you are as a person, but also how that fits into the company or the culture that you're applying for, or the role that you're applying for. And keep it within a minute or so. Don't long it out too much. Don't go to your history like I did, but just that. And then why this role, even if it's tech consulting or whichever, make sure you have that why, which is very solid and really shows, again, some of the values that you stand for or your interest. Why this business area, again, have that solid answers boxed off. And when you repeat those answers through video interviews or through your friends or whichever telephone interviews you are, you just get better and better at finessing that answer, right? So that's the why. I think what I would like to focus on is the competency sort of questions. For me, I think that was the hardest part to get through, because a lot of the times you don't know, even if you have a strong example, are you selling yourself well? Are you being able to link it back so that it shows not only the skill and the impact that you had, but the enthusiasm gets through to the recruiter. So what helped me was a STAR approach: situation, task, action, result, reflection. So you describe the situation. So let's say you ask me a question about, tell me of a time when you worked in a challenging or difficult situation. So I'll describe the situation first in a couple lines. I'll move on to the task at hand, what I needed to do or deliver. A couple lines again. Action. Action should be predominantly focused on you, not the team, you. What did you do? What did Arsalan do, right? So I did this. I put on a timeline planner. I did the actions on this. I set up micro enterprises. I set up a target of the fund and the time, whatever. What did you do? And then result. What did you achieve? Achieved it within the deadline? Yes. Achieved gratification by saving some money? Yes. How much money? How many percentage improvement in terms of the process or membership, etc., whichever the example might be, but the impact in numbers. And reflection. So this is something that I think for me helped a lot, was now given the example of a challenging scenario, how does that relate back to the recruiter or the company? Why is this important to them? And sometimes you would assume that they would do the math, but if you can help them get there, that's one job done, you know. Mm-hmm. If you can say, hey, excuse me, this works well because I know that Big Four works in challenging deadlines and client requirements are always not so, you know, under pressure or not so well defined that you are working on the clock. I believe that this kind of example shows that I can work or thrive in that situation. One extra line about that company or business area or role, but I think that will set you apart from so many answers. So that's a tip that I will leave in competency questions.
I think that was an incredible explanation there. So clearly done as well. And there's two things I want to pull out. Fundamentally, what you kind of explained there is like going the extra mile. So not just answering the question as it's given to you, but going one step further. A good candidate will answer the question, but the candidates that get the job usually are going to try and go that little bit further. You mentioned the tell me about yourself question, which is a horrible question really, because where do you take that? It's so broad and it's so easy to just ramble on, or simply go chronologically. Yeah. I was born here and then I went to school here and then I did this, and that's just like basically reading off your CV. Yes. Whereas what you want to do is kind of firstly prepare for that one, because you know it can come up, and give a very concise, brief sort of summary of who you are, what you bring to the table, and then bring it to the role in the company. Because of that, I feel like I'm a great fit for this position. or with your STAR approach. I love what you said there. We're adding in an extra R, by the way. First of all, reflection, really important. That shows that you're able to, yeah, measure yourself and kind of be self-conscious and look to improve, or self-reflecting rather. And then you've applied that to their values as well. You've looked at the company and said, I know that this is really important to you, and that's obviously why they're asking the question in the first place. I know this is important to you, and therefore I've developed those skills, and I can apply that to this role again. So it's just going the extra mile, isn't it, by adding further value and making it really specific and relevant,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. And then a bit of nugget, right? Bigger nugget to show that you are genuinely interested. You are genuinely interested in a company. And that could be somehow in your answers or in that conversation, depending on how it's flowing. Some recruiters keep it free flowing, some are very structured. But bringing that out that, hey, I attended one of your events and I spoke to one of your colleagues. I spoke to one of your staff members through LinkedIn, they spoke about your company culture or people, how you focus on the people or the initiatives, because I read something online and your Women in Tech initiative or your Black Lives Matter action plan, all of those things. Just bring that out, which shows that you've gone the extra mile and you're genuinely interested in a company, which will then show that, hey, this person's really interested,
I love that. So we've got a job in tech consulting now for sure. We've absolutely killed every step of the application process. So we're good now. We're good. But let's talk international students. I know this is something you're really passionate about, and geez, it's tough, man. It's tough. It's a difficult thing to get an early career role for anyone, a domestic citizen of that country. But to be an international student, especially in the UK, and to kind of have to convince a company to cover your visa, it's challenging, right? And I guess just to get it out of the way, there are some companies that just essentially won't do that for early career roles because they see it as kind of too expensive for what you're sort of being paid and the sort of what that role represents, and because there's so many UK candidates that are going for that role anyway. But there is hope and there is opportunities out there, and you absolutely can get them as an international student. So Arsalan, tell us how to do that. I don't know if we're studying maybe we're studying in the UK, but I don't know if you've got advice for people that are abroad as well. Let's start in the UK. So if I'm an international student in the UK, how do I get a job in the UK? I'm desperate to stay in this amazing country. How do I do that?
Yes. Thank you for this question. This is something that I'm really passionate about, and I feel like getting to know you through Clubhouse and what you working towards bringing diversity in the early careers, I think was something that resonated with me most. So this question is everything, right? And I believe in game plans, so people who can see this, there's a game plan written here in this post-it note, especially for this question, because I believe that without hope we're nothing, and with UK, they give you hope. They give you genuinely, there are outlets willing to hire you if you're an international student, right? You just need to be driven and be able to compromise a little if needed. If you don't find your perfect job, but you know that the priority is to stay in this country and get a job here rather than going back, then maybe you can work around that. So probably not the best advice that, hey, go for what you are passionate about. Apply for the roles that you think you would like. Don't apply for anything and everything because it takes effort to apply. But when you do, then you can say, hey, I probably didn't get my dream job, but I got something which will potentially get me to my dream job. So that's the lens I would firstly suggest. Manage expectations, right? Not every company can sponsor, as you said, but a lot of the big companies can. So just reach for the stars. You've got a 2-1 or a first class, you're in Russell Group University. Why not? What is stopping you to apply for these big companies, right? And a lot of those times now, some universities, some companies have even scratched the degree requirements or STEM requirements or grade requirements. So there is opportunity there.
Yeah, so just on that, even if you aren't going to Russell Group University, there's opportunities out there if you're going to another university or not a university at all. So yeah.
So here's the game plan, right? First, you're working towards Russell Group University and you've started in, this is all UK based from my experience. First year in, tell yourself that whatever you've done so far in your life in sixth form and GCSEs is on the side. You're rebuilding yourself. That's how I looked into it. I came from Pakistan, right away. As soon as I took the flight, I'm outside my comfort zone. But I knew that I'm outside my comfort zone. So I'm just going to keep pushing that, right? So I'm not just going to be in the Pakistani society or the Islamic society. I'm going to be taking part in ballroom dancing, or I'm going to be taking part in petroleum engineering society or economic society and startup society, whichever, just table tennis society. I'm passionate about that. Putting yourself out there, getting to know people, right? That's the first game plan. Just climatizing to different ideas and different thoughts. Then you build up. You build up by talking to people and career centers to know, hey, if I want to apply for different roles, what different outlets are there? What open days can I go? Because somebody who's studying engineering could potentially go anywhere in the world, right? Not just stick to chemical engineering. And that helped me when I went to open days for tech companies, for oil and gas companies, FMCGs like PwC and, not PwC, P&G and Unilever. Idea was I just wanted to expand my knowledge. So first year, you just expand, expose yourself to different careers and different streams, different podcasts like these, just expose yourself. Once you have done that, the next game plan is build up your CV in terms of positions and responsibilities and doing shadow interns or summer internships and applying for those kind of avenues, right? Get something under your belt in terms of examples that you've done and really put yourself out there. So if you're in second year now, you should be looking for summer internships, right? You should be looking for opportunities to do a spring week or summer internships between your second year and third year of uni. If you don't secure that, it's not the end of the game, right? I never did a summer internship. I did a placement coming from engineering background, did a year in industry, but never did a summer internship. Go to Reed, go to Indeed, CV Library. These kind of websites and portals have job openings for summer, right? As an international student, if you're doing summer internships or spring week or something, you are not restricted by the 22-hour rule, 22 hours work per week, because there's an hour limitation of how much you can work whilst you're studying. But during summer or spring weeks, you're allowed to work full time. So do that. Try to get some kind of experience under your belt, because that will help you eventually when you're applying online or giving your CVs. And when you're in your third year, you apply early. You apply early. BP said you apply within the first 2 weeks. They say it's on a. They say it's not. It's not first come first serve basis, but eventually it becomes rolling. On a rolling basis. So if the roles are filled, they're filled. So I would definitely emphasize applying for these newsletters for different companies so that you hear those job openings first and you write it. So for example, the company I applied for, the graduate scheme had to start in 2018, August, September time. I applied in 2017, August, a year before. As soon as it opened, I was there, Toby. I was there, right? Nice. Give them no excuse that I was late. So I would recommend the same thing. And finally, one thing that really struck with me was HRs and the recruiters are there to help you. Some companies have advertised on their web portals or application states that if you require a work permit or a sponsorship, we do not. So that saves you time. Don't think that they will change their mind if they find you that you're amazing. No, if that's a policy, just accept it. But if it's not written, send them an email, ring them up, do something to just say, hey, is that options on the card, right? And that really helped me save a lot of time. And finally, please, if you're still in university, do not underestimate the university that you're in and the links they have with the recruiters and the companies. Sometimes companies do come to universities because they have special relations and they will recruit from that university. So the placement I got, which was a year in industry between my second year and third year, was with a company that only hired from University of Leeds. So I would definitely recommend that route as well, because that just limits the talent pool that's applying for that job and grows your chances of actually getting it. And fingers crossed, if you apply for these big companies, you follow these rules or these suggestions, hopefully one company will land. But you just gotta back yourself, you know.
I
And
love
hey,
that you brought the
they can reach
post-it
out to
note.
me.
Came prepared.
Hey, everything and anything for you. I might have missed so many things, but yeah, networking, I think I hit that. Summer internships, position of responsibility, apply. Yeah, we did it. We did
You
it.
hit it. Oh, of course, everything. No
And yeah,
drama.
reach out to me, honestly, or people like me who you've seen walk through those shoes, and be shameless. Reach out and say, hey, I need help, but show genuine interest, show genuine need and want that you want to work well and you want to improve and you want to get it. Don't ask for a magic pill, because there isn't.
Yeah, 100%. And I really liked what you said about contacting them first to say, do you cover a work visa for this role? That is so powerful, because part of the challenge really is the fatigue of, especially when you're an international student, of going through loads of applications and kind of wondering, wait, are they even going to consider me or what or whatever? Am I wasting my time? And you go through loads of applications and it just gets you down and fatigued and you want to stop. So up front, you get rid of that. You only save your energy and your time for the companies that are able and willing to cover your visa. I think that's a massive, yeah, the massive tip that can really help people straight away. I think that's a really good one. So yeah, thanks so much for that, Arsalan, and hopefully, yeah, people can reach out to you directly on LinkedIn as
Yes.
well to get yeah, maybe even more advice. It's very kind of you to offer to do that. Um, as we kind of wrap up, I just wanted to share that, even just today, I've had two candidates who sent me a message to say, look, I was pretty much wanting to stop, not do any more applications anymore. I was pretty much said, look, I've got so many rejections. I'm tired of it. I want to go to do something else. I'm going to stop. And they've studied some of the things that we've been talking about on Clubhouse. They've actually managed to network and jump straight to the interview stage, or they've been able to network, and rather than, a job was actually closed, but now they're able to actually get through to the next stage anyway. So all that sort of advice you're giving on Clubhouse is genuinely helping people get jobs. I think this is really powerful. So any final words of encouragement? Anyone who is there now listening and thinking, I want to be done with my applications anymore. It's not working out. So many rejections. Any kind of last words of encouragement you want to share to them?
Join Diverse Club. Follow Toby. That's it. That's the plug. Because what you're doing is phenomenal. I hope that this goes and reaches out to the audiences, and join Clubhouse, not just Clubhouse, join conversations, be part of those conversations and back yourself, right? There's always that imposter syndrome that's back in the mind, but you have to just tell them that threat is not real. You are good enough, right? Rejections not to be taken personally, and always remembering that if you're doing right, if you're doing it genuinely, and you're following this game of applying early and making sure that you're doing the research and the values, and you're being critical that, hey, if I didn't get through CV stage, that was probably because I need CV refinement. I'll get that on interview, then I just need to practice a bit more and I will get there. Just being and taking it logically in that way, being very much non-emotional about these things, I think really helped me get it. Because 42 rejections, 42 rejections.
Yeah.
You remember that number, I can't forget that. 42 well thought applications, and we finally got there. So I believe that if somebody like me who didn't get a first class, I just got a mere 2-1, coming from engineering background with no spring week, no summer internships in finance industry, got into tech consulting in one of the big fours, I am sure person who's listening to this podcast is definitely on it, and I wish them the best of luck.
Sounds great. And you're a man who's got 42 rejections in your Excel sheet now, haven't you, to remind you where you came from. So yeah, you're a fantastic person to listen to. Honestly, you've done an incredible service here today. I'm sure you've helped at least one person get a job in consulting. So off the back of this, if you are listening and you have now just got your job in tech consulting off the back of Arsalan's great advice, or you're an international student and you've done that, get in touch, because we'd love to tell that story as well. Cool. Let's wrap it up there. That was incredible. I love that. Thanks so much, Arsalan, for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Toby. Thank you so much.